analyst for Utah football. Been doing it for 8 years now, and I'm a big Caleb Lohner fan. And I think it was massively underutilized last year. I see the talent, and I see talent that will translate into the NFL. So I'm fascinated. I want all of our listeners to get fascinated and get behind Caleb Lohner, because I really think you got a shot in the NFL, Caleb. So really glad you could join us today. I want to go back in your life for just a minute, and I'm just curious, what took you to BYU initially to play basketball? What was your recruiting process, and why did you choose BYU?
Yeah, I just think the great relationships and great people down there that I've known in the past, and my dad played ball there, and I think there's a lot of factors that went into it. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time at every school that I've been at. There's nothing but great things to say about each university. But yeah, that was the start of my collegiate career.
And what went into the process of transferring to Baylor? Like, why did you choose to that? What went into that?
I just think different opportunity, and there's some other factors, and I just felt like it was the right thing for me. And I'm so grateful for my time at Baylor too. I believe that was kind of the plan that I was supposed to be on track with, and those are 2 great years at BYU and then 2 amazing years at Baylor. Still have great connections and relationships with all the coaches and players that I've been with, and yeah, that was just kind of part of the journey.
So I've been to Waco, Texas. Can't say it's my favorite place to go. Can't say it's my least favorite place to go. I don't. What's exciting about Waco, Texas? Help me out there. I don't know if there is or there isn't. I didn't spend that much time. What's exciting about Waco, Texas?
So I got to Waco, and I at first kind of saying the same thing. It's a smaller town in between 2 bigger cities in Dallas and Austin. And but after spending time there, I love it. It's amazing. It's, just a little gem. It's actually growing quite rapidly and being developed. But there's just amazing people. You kind of get all sorts of great things. You get great food, old-time restaurants, and companies that have been there since the 50s and 60s. You kind of get this, real old vintage Texas feel to it. And for someone like me, I just ate that up. And it was so fun to be in a place like that to kind of finish that sector of my college career, and the people there and, everything that they had to offer, and making it the best experience possible. So I have nothing but great things to say about the Waco community and Baylor University as a whole.
Yeah, they seem to be very proud of their university and where they are. Did you spend much time at Buc-ee's? That's what I need to know.
I did not spend any time at Buc-ee's.
No time at Buc-ee's?
I'd kind of done that as a kid growing up there. And so, I think that ship has sailed. Once you see it once or twice, you're good for a while, you kind of punch your ticket for 10, 20 years.
I think I got a sticker at Buc-ee's. I don't know if I'm going to fully admit that, but I did go there. It was very interesting. Okay. Yeah. So what goes into the process of like saying, okay, I'm not going to play football or basketball anymore. I'm going to go play football. What made you decide that? How did that whole thing come about?
Yeah, I think just, a lot of different things happened that in my mind kind of told me it was meant to be, and that I had been presented to this amazing opportunity to, take the chance and play football. And it was through some connections and past relationships of just some of the Utah community. And, we went through with the process, and I kind of just took a look at, my collegiate career and my basketball career and kind of where I was at, and decided that it would be in my best interest to take that leap of faith and, believe what this Utah coaching staff had been telling me about opportunity and what they think I could be as a tight end. And then, I'd made the decision and didn't look back, and I enjoyed every second of it.
So did you play football in high school? Did you play in high school?
I did not. I played like youth football, so I think up until 7th grade, and then I stopped playing.
So you didn't even play in high school. You didn't even get recruited to play football in high school. What did Utah say to you? I mean, did they say, was it just your body type? Or was it like, hey, come and give this a try? Well, what was that conversation like, since you didn't even
They,
play in school?
yeah. Well, they just kind of told me, hey, look, we believe you have all of the intangibles and traits to be a very successful tight end. And, they didn't promise me anything. They didn't tell me, blow me with smoke too much, but they just kind of gave me an opportunity and presented the facts of their offense and how they utilized tight ends over the last however many years. And again, I just believed what they were preaching. And, they also had told me, especially Fred Whittingham, he just told me, hey, I'll spend time with you. I'll develop you. I will, help you hash out the X's and O's and film and all these things that are required to be a good football player if you want to give this a chance. And I believed him, because I wouldn't be where I am now without someone like Fred Whittingham and the tight end room that we had last year helping me, through all the X's and O's and understanding the scheme of football and why you do this and all the little things that some, people don't see as like a fan.
Yeah. I'm really curious. Like, so you're very familiar with basketball. You get on a football field. What skills translated? What could you use from your basketball time that actually go, oh, this will help me with football?
I think routes were one of the things that came easier at first, just because of the reactionary. Maybe making a read here and cutting off this foot, or I just thought of it as like the crossover, or running the floor in basketball, right? It's pretty translatable, and you can get as complex or simple as you want when it comes to running routes. But I would say that's one of the things that transferred. And then also just catching the football. I think when you play basketball long enough, you're used to like having good ball skills and hand-eye coordination when it comes to catching a football. And so I would say that translated as well.
So walk me through the first touchdown that you scored. What was that like? What was that whole feeling? What was that whole experience like?
It was an amazing feeling. It didn't really feel like normal at first. I was like, wow, this is strange. Like I just caught a touchdown in a college football game. It wasn't really until after the game I was like, wow, I really just caught a ball in the end zone. And then it was, well, this is pretty cool. I've only been playing football for, I think, 3 months at that time. Just gone through training camp. And so it was an amazing feeling. And then I think once I got a taste of that, it was on. I think that's when the passion for football just kept building and building and building. And to get, where I am now and kind of doing all the process of what I'm doing. So it was amazing. It was something that I'll never forget.
Speaking of now, actually, I want to ask you this question first. So when do you get more nervous, before a basketball game or a football game?
I don't know. I think you get kind of the same, and I wouldn't use the word nervous. I mean, everybody has nerves, but I like to see it more of an excitement, right?
Okay.
Just an excitement to compete, an excitement to go out and get to play a sport that you love. That's kind of where I would channel all of that into. And, they're both similar, but I love, gearing up. There's something about putting on a football helmet and pads and gear on your body, kind of signifies that you're ready to go to battle. Basketball is a little different. You just throw on your shorts and your jersey. It's a little easier, a little quicker. So yeah, that was, a fun process to go through in the pregame part of football.
So I've been around guys that played basketball and then became football players, and some of them were very successful and some not so much. I'm curious. There's a physicalness to basketball. There's a lot of close contact. Is it the same physicalness? Was that something you had to get used to, like where someone really hits you to try to knock you off your feet and to try to tackle you? How is the physicalness compared between the two sports?
I mean, football is way more physical. It just is. in everything you do, right? Blocking, the running routes, people are, hitting you off the line. Like there's just a lot more. Basketball, yeah, there's physicality when you get into the paint. You lose balls, all that stuff. But football is a different level. But I would say I adapted pretty quick to it. Just a credit to the teachings and traditions of Utah football and their physicality and the way that they taught me and the standard that all the other guys had. And so it's nice to be around physical men in a football team because it just lifts you up and makes you better. So I think that was crucial to my development.
So when you get a Kyle Whittingham pregame speech, or let's say, I guess, a Dave Rose or a Mark Pope or some of the other coaches you've had, who gets you more fired up? Basketball coaches or football coaches?
They're all so different, and I've had the privilege of playing for so many amazing coaches in my career. But one thing about Coach Kyle Whittingham is, when he talks, you listen, right? And the things that he says, they carry something to it. And so it was always fun to listen to what he had to say pregame because I think I can speak for the rest of the team. When he said something, it got us fired up. It got us rolling. Like we wanted to go out there and win for him and win for the rest of the coaching staff and our teammates and just the Utah football program as an organization. So.
See, Kyle Whittingham is the former linebacker. They're not quite there as it is. They have to be a little bit. So I can totally expect. I would love to hear a Kyle Whittingham pregame speech. Actually, I might even. They should sell it to like fans.
Ask him to give one.
I should. Actually, I had him on just not too long ago. That's a good idea. I'm gonna say, Coach, come on and fire me up, fire our audience up. I want to hear what you say in a pregame speech. That's a great question, by the way. I just wrote that down because that's a really good. In fact, I'm supposed to talk to Kyle later today, so I'm going to do that. All right. How frustrating was last season? I know it's like your first experience with football. A lot of expectations, and should have been a lot better than it was. So how frustrating was it? And I personally expected you to be more involved in what was going on. I'm just curious how frustrating it actually was.
Yeah, I think you go through any season with a group of guys that you love and care about, and you're not winning as many games as you believe you should or would like to win. It's tough, man. I mean, winning is kind of the center of everything when it comes to college or any sport. You play to win, and so there's times it was frustrating, but I think as a whole we were able to stick together emotionally and be there for each other when we could. And everyone can have their piece and say, I wanted more time here, or I wanted more snaps, or I wanted this, but we can't go back and change that. In my case, unfortunately, that was my only year, but I think there's a lot of good to be taken out of going through adversity like that.
I'm also curious, like, what was your NIL experience like? Because it would have mostly been with basketball, or did NIL kind of come along as you were playing basketball? I'm not sure. And what was your experience with NIL like?
NIL's NIL. I think it's different for everybody, but NIL started when it was my first year, right after COVID, and so I've kind of been able to see the whole NIL world and Wild West unravel as I've gone through college.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this all day if we wanted. It's different. It's there's no kind of limit or what am I looking for? Process that teams are going through. It's kind of just, hey, if we can get the money, if we can pay these guys this, do this. So I'm actually interested to see kind of what happens in the next, say, 5 years and how they process some of this stuff because, it's different. It's new. And I think, when the NCAA came out with all this stuff, it gave a lot of teams free reign and, different universities have different kinds of money and yeah.
So, did you see that it had like an impact in the locker room? Like some guys were, because I was in NFL locker rooms and money's always a topic, and everyone wants to get paid, and everyone wants to get paid what they think they're worth, and they think they're worth more than the guy who got paid a lot. It's like they paid him, and so did you see that at all? Or was there some jealousy? Did it cause problems in the locker room when maybe some players were paid and others weren't?
I'm the last, few teams I've been a part of. I've been on incredible teams with high character guys, high character coaches, and I honestly have not seen that.
Huh.
That's not
That's good
something
to hear.
I've been a part of. The people that I've played with and the teams I've been on, it just has never been a problem. And again, I think that differs. But I've been very fortunate to be around, great men. And yeah, I've never had that problem, never seen any kind of egos come from that. And so, yeah.
So you're in the middle of this draft process. The draft is coming up, I believe, in about a week, right? I think it's a week from today. And what's that process been like? What have you been doing? What have you been hearing? What's your process been like?
Yeah, I've just been training and watching film, running routes, doing drills, all that, like everybody else, and taking a few trips out to some teams to do visits and a few teams workouts. But it's been great. I've been super blessed to be in the position that I'm in now and the opportunities that I've had, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I think everybody just wants an opportunity, and so I'll be hoping for that. And I'm just super grateful to continue this process and see what happens.
So when you go visit these teams, I'm sure that they talk to you. What's the craziest question they've asked you?
Craziest question. I don't think I've gotten any crazy questions, but I've got reoccurring questions like why and do you believe you can do that? All the things that a college or a NFL personnel guy or offensive coordinator or head coach would ask, and somebody that looks like me and has the career profile that I do. But it's been super fun to go around and meet different people and see different organizations and, really get a feel for how the next level is going to be when it comes to the coaching perspective. And so super excited and looking forward to what's next.
Would you like some advice?
Absolutely. Give me all the advice you got.
So I hated the draft. It was the worst day of my life. And it was the worst day because you hear so many different things before the draft, where you're going to potentially go, and you talk to teams even during the draft. I ended up getting drafted in the 4th round. I was told by everyone I talked to that I would be a late 1st round draft choice, no later than the 2nd round. It was really a horrible day for me. But when I finally realized it was over, I was drafted or I was on a team. And that's really where it all begins. Like the draft is a bunch of the draft is about athleticism. It's about all this craziness. And at that point, once you're drafted, everyone's on equal footing. You're there.
Yep.
And so just, whatever the draft is, just get through it and then get after it. And I went there with the mindset of I'm going to be the starting quarterback for this team, and whatever I have to do that, I'll do that. And so that's just the mindset. If I was going to tell you, you are the starting tight end for whomever, and that's it. And that's your shot, and just do whatever, because there's no redo. You don't get to go in the transfer portal. You don't get to start. You just go. If I was going to tell anyone, that's what I would tell them. So there you have it.
That's great. That's great advice.
All right, I got one last question.
Yeah.
And this has been awesome, by the way. I really appreciate your time, Caleb.
No problem.
What's the difference between a basketball locker room and a football locker room?
It really is it's stereotypical, but a football locker room is just more rowdy. There's
Right.
more guys. There's more fun. There's more screaming and standing up on the lockers, and it's just different. And I think that's just because of the game and energy that a football match requires versus like a basketball game. It's a little different. There's certain levels of focus for each one, certain levels of physicality, and also your basketball team is pretty small.
Right.
In comparative to a football locker room, it's just you don't have a ton of guys, you don't have a ton of staff. It's a little different, and so that's the biggest difference. I wish I could give you something more in depth, but the football locker room is just more rowdy. There's more of a energy in there with the collective of people and different personalities, and basketball is just a little smaller.
Yeah, see, I haven't been in a basketball locker room other than when I was in high school, which wasn't much. But an NFL locker room there's nothing like it. It's just hard to. There's so much that goes on there, and there's an energy in it. And I'm sure it's very similar in college. It's not a lot different, but I think everyone in their life needs to experience an NFL locker room at some point. They just need that experience. So. And my hope is that you experience an NFL locker room for a long, long time. So all my best to you, Caleb. I really mean that. And thanks for coming on today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on. This has been awesome.
All right. There you have it, folks. Caleb Lohner, the next great tight end in the NFL. And there are a lot of tight ends, by the way, people who came from basketball backgrounds, a lot of great ones. Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, the list goes on, and there are guys in the NFL right now that have been great tight ends. I played with a few in my time. In fact, Bruce Smith was a basketball player in high school, and someone convinced him that he should play football, and he finally did. And so I'm just a big fan of Caleb's and really wish him well. It'd be fun to see what happens to him in the draft. We're going to take a break. We come back. It's NFL news of note. Oh man, we just got to talk. Like Deion Sanders, I don't know what the freak he's doing with this one, but we're going to talk about that and so much more when we return. This is Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 700 92.1 FM. Hello, sports fans. Welcome back. It is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM, Utah's #1 sports talk. Fun interview with Caleb Lohner. It'll be fascinating to see what happens with him. He's got the physique, he's got the athleticism. He gets in the right system, and he has some time to really marinate and develop. It might be a good thing for him. With the rosters expanding, who knows where he ends up or what happens with him. I know there's interest in him with teams in the NFL, so it'll be fascinating to see what happens there in the draft coming up. And he's heard things: late round draft choice, free agent. A lot of free agency is not a bad way to go in the NFL. And there's kind of some things too with a player who maybe he has no skeletons, he has no history, he has no bad habits he's developed. And in a lot of ways, that's a really positive thing. And you get to an NFL team where they can really coach you and teach you and develop you. And he was right about Fred Whittingham. Fred Whittingham's done a phenomenal job as the tight end coach at the University of Utah and developed some great players. That you think of Dalton Kincaid, you think of Keithy, who will probably be drafted this year. Cole Fotheringham had some decent time in the NFL, and they have guys now, on the roster. So it'll be intriguing just to see where he ends up. Okay, it's time for the NFL news of note, which I have to start with this one. Like, I feel like I have to start and I have to end with this one, and I have to, and everywhere in between. So let's start with this and see where we end. Apparently, the Colorado Buffaloes are going to retire the jerseys of Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter this weekend at the Colorado Buffalo game. Okay. One side of this is, yeah, absolutely. There's no question you should do this, and you should do it immediately. And it just goes without saying, and that's Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter has been a unique player in college football, unlike maybe we've seen in a long, long time. I'm trying to think of, has anyone played this number of snaps on both sides of the football? And quite frankly, that's why he won the Heisman Trophy. He was pretty productive in two positions. You could argue that there are other players who were a lot more productive as a position player.
I hate to say it, to cut you off for a minute there, Scott. I don't think anybody has done that many snaps since his head coach, Deion Sanders, did it in college.
I don't think Deion played that much offense in college. That's why I'm trying. I don't know that there is. I believe Charles Woodson might have played.
Terrell Green, maybe wide receiver, cornerback.
Yeah. We can look it up and figure it out, but nothing comes to mind. So it's easy that he's the guy, right? It's easy that he. But Shedeur, like, this is when your name and your jersey gets retired. That's a prominent thing. That's not like, you kind of were one of the top players in the country in the statistical category your year. Maybe you're one of the top statistical in the category of passing at Colorado, which is not saying a lot because Colorado doesn't really throw the football that much. I can't say that Shedeur Sanders was a guy that you go, oh yeah, no question. This career, all of this, absolutely you should have. You look at, when you look at quarterbacks, you go to BYU, and they had a Heisman Trophy win. They had these guys that were All-Americans, that were some of the, set career records, and all of the, Jim McMahon and Mark Wilson and Ty Detmer, Steve Young. Steve Young may have had the best career in the NFL and may have had the worst career at BYU. and it was pretty good. I mean, he was really good. And he was an early first round draft choice. Same thing with McMahon from BYU, and so. But it's kind of after the fact. You can say what you want. I think the article came out. It's like Tim Tebow, who was Mr. College Football, who won national championships at Florida, who a lot of people argue might be one of the greatest college football players of all time, doesn't have his jersey retired. It's not something you just flippantly throw around because you love your son and he had a pretty good year and a pretty good career on an average Colorado team. I mean, Colorado was never anything more than average yet. That's the reality of how things are. Now, there's a lot of pomp and circumstances with Colorado, and there's a lot of attention, and people tune in, and they tune in because of Prime, not because Shedeur Sanders was just the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I'm disappointed, quite frankly. I'm disappointed, and there's a blind spot. We all have it as parents that we don't see our kids necessarily for the reality of what they are sometimes. And I think this is one of those situations where, yeah, I'm not too sure that Shedeur and Dion actually sees him for what he really is. And he's not bad. I'm not saying he's bad. I mean, he's going to get drafted. More than likely, he'll probably play in the NFL. How long, how successful, it remains to be seen. Very few people are like Deion Sanders. Very few people just walk in the front door in greatness and walk out the back door even greater than the front door they walked in. There's a handful of every player that goes through the draft every year. I mean, you can go historically look at every single draft, and you can look at you can look at the whole entire draft, and you get somewhere between maybe five players in every draft year make it to the Hall of Fame, if that. Some are a little more, some are a little less. So it's not like these are great players, and it's not like Shedeur had this phenomenal career. It was really good, but there are a lot of other players who've had far more exceptional years as a quarterback in college, and it's like when you make a joke about a tragedy. And it's too soon. It feels like, it's a little too soon. They haven't even left yet. I mean, this is the spring. Like, it's like, hold on now. That's just maybe down the road with time and perspective, and maybe Shedeur lights it up in the NFL, and maybe you go, yeah, see, he was pretty good. But to get your jersey retired like that, yeah. No. I'm going to say no. And again, I'm disappointed. I am disappointed with Dion. I've brought this up on the show before, and I've asked people about this. I think it's a challenging proposition when you're evaluating Shedeur Sanders, that you do it without a lens focused on Dion, Coach Prime, whatever his name is. And you do that, I think it's almost impossible to do. And I think Coach Prime makes it impossible. The article I was reading, it talks about the whole process of the event that they had at Colorado, the showcase. It wasn't like the athletic program going, okay, yeah, we're going to do a pro day. It was like, no, there was an event planner who said every last detail of this will be vetted out. and to the very last tee, this will be staged, and it will be an event. This is an opportunity to market, and I can't say that I fault it. I just know that, you know, a lot of marketing goes into some products that, you know, maybe it's a Flowbee. You've heard of the Flowbee, right? And it got a lot of press and marketing, but what was it really? And so marketing and promotion are one thing, but substance, especially when you're evaluating someone to say, our lives, our careers, our employment is based on you being a great player. And if we pick you and you're not, we get fired. So you can promote the heck out of everything you want. Can you produce? And that's what's kind of challenging for me with separating the promotion of Shedeur and the production. And I don't think the two completely mesh. And having this event, I mean, it was even how people were invited and where they were invited, and the whole process. Even they wore T-shirts and sweatshirts that were, you know, talking about what it was, and it was a spectacle. And I don't know that that's wrong. I get the promotion side of it, but man, when people are evaluating for their livelihood, thank you for the nice, warm welcome and invitation, but you have the goods. And can people get past the bling to get to the boom? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's really hard when it I think we talked about this yesterday, Martin, where you said, wow, I forgot what I was, what did you say?
Like, could he ever, like, his dad's
Will
shadow?
Shedeur ever get out of
will
his
he
dad?
ever get? Will he ever get out of his dad's shadow?
Yeah. I mean, his dad. It's a big shadow, but it's also he's creating even a bigger one.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a little scary to me.
I mean, like,
Right.
to wrap it up, like, has there ever been a more hyped college quarterback than Shedeur Sanders? Just like based on his name alone, I can't think of one.
Well, I don't know that anyone knows how to hype people better than Coach Prime.
That's a good point.
I mean, he's the hype man, you know, and it's his son.
That's a good point.
The question to me becomes, what does next year's hype event look like for Colorado? Is it the same? Like, does it have the same meaning?
Not really.
Is Coach Prime standing on his pedestal, beating the drum of his next great player, like he is his own son? I just think it's hard as a parent. We have a blind spot. It's almost like we should recuse ourselves from that whole process because we can't be objective. I think some parents are too fluffy and flowery and optimistic, and I think some are too hardcore and you know, like, and give no props. I remember Chris Spielman. He was an All-American linebacker at Ohio State. Was drafted by the Lions and was the middle linebacker for the Lions. And Chris was a really good player. Wasn't a great player. Wasn't a Hall of Fame player. His dad was hard on him. And if Chris lost a wrestling match in high school, he didn't get a ride home. He was like, "You hit the trails, buddy." If you know, and so his dad was pretty tough on him. And I don't know if that was necessarily a good thing. You know, I think Chris needed a hug every once in a while, but a very good player. All right, let's move on. This is another one that's kind of interesting with quarterbacks and hype, right? So Will Howard, the quarterback for the national champion Ohio State Buckeyes, believes he's the best quarterback in the draft. Now, his experience at the NFL Combine went a little different. And it went from, like, there was viral news coming out of the combine that Will Howard had the absolute worst combine experience, who was terrible, was overthrowing people right and left, and looked horrible, and it was going out on social media. And the only way Will Howard knew about it was he was getting messages from loved ones about, are you okay? And he's like, what? Why would I not be okay? And so there was a lot of noise coming out of the. Hang on. Coming out of the combine, that Will Howard was not doing well. And again, there's just a couple things I just want to point out with this. There's some real hatred between Ohio State, Michigan, and people are vicious. And I wouldn't put it past this being some Michigan folks that aren't happy about Ohio State winning a national championship. I wouldn't. I would not sit there and go, oh, because and again, this is another one of those. Let's flood the airwaves with false information. If there isn't a more gamesmanship thing that happens, it's the NFL draft. People putting out misinformation, people sending stuff, people trying to maneuver, trying to distract people. For example, some teams will get on the phone with a player knowing that a team might pick them and they want to pick the player, and they're going to monopolize their time on the telephone so the other team can't get a hold of them. And then they run out of time in the draft. Now they may very well, still draft, but there's all kinds of nefarious things that go on. And this is one of those. But the thing that I love about Will Howard is, man, you got to believe. You got to believe in who you are. And to Shedur's credit, he does. And he's got that going for him, and that can take you a long way. And it will for Will Howard. And Will Howard, probably a guy that's going to end up on a good team in a good situation. And who knows? He may very well be the best guy in the draft when all the dust settles. We're going to take a break. But before we do, it's ESPN Festival of Tees. Powered by the Utah Golf Association, each day ESPN 700 is giving away rounds of golf for the best courses in the state. Listen to the Down and Dirty with me, Scott Mitchell, from 10 to 11 and 1 to 2, and the Sean O'Connell Show from 11 to 2, and the Drive with Spence Checketts from 2 to 6 for your chance to win every day here on ESPN 700. All right, I'm going to give you a secret word. You text it in to 877-353-0700, and you will play at Sunbrook. 1 round, 18 holes. And the secret word is NFL. I even spelled it for you. Okay. So text in, you win. We'll be back in a minute. This is Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM. righty, sports fans, welcome back. It is the Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM, Utah's #1 sports talk. The Jazz season's over. The play-in games have started. I just have one question for everyone watching the play-in games. Golden State looks like they want to play basketball. I know, and they had a close game, a good game against Memphis. And so now Memphis, Dallas, and Sacramento are going to duke it out for the 8th spot so they can play OKC. I think that is just compelling basketball. All these teams, and I'm saying this with tongue in cheek, all of these teams, oh my goodness, we want to win so bad. I think this is going to be who wants to lose the most. Like, they're going to try that hard. Who's going to try to lose the most? That's the theme of that game. Dallas is in disarray. Memphis is in disarray. And same with Sacramento. I mean, it's just you think, okay, Memphis, they fired their coach. Sacramento fired their coach earlier in the year. And Dallas let go of and made the most bonehead, idiotic move in a trade with Luka Doncic that you could ever imagine. These teams clearly have no interest in wanting to win. Which leads me to the Utah Jazz. There was a really good article in KSL.com about Will Hardy. Ryan Miller, of course, wrote this article. He covers the Jazz. And he wrote this article about Will Hardy. And it's you know, he wants to be the coach through the rebuild. And I think it would be a hard position to be in, where you're sacrificing your whole existence as a coach for this. I mean, this is what Doc Rivers, who went through a rebuild, had to say about, you know, these coaches basically losing on purpose, and he did it for 3 years. It's just, I've always complained, for a coach's sake, that goes on your record. This is Doc Rivers saying, I had 3 years of that, and that stays with your record. So when they fire you and you go to another team, I think those should transfer to the team that fired you. You shouldn't get the record. You took a hit for them. I totally agree with that. And of course, this is what Justin Zanuck had to say about Will Hardy. He just said, if I had a vote, I honestly would cast my vote for Coach of the Year for Will Hardy. Wow. He won 17 games. You always run the risk, right? That you're the guy that gets them through the hard time. And then when things are looking good, they bring somebody else in. I think of Tony Dungy, where Tony Dungy really changed the whole perception of the Tampa Bay Yucks and really turned them into the Bucks. And then they let go of him. And and they brought in a guy named John Gruden. And Gruden reaps the benefit of that. Now he got him to a Super Bowl. He did it, and he won it. He won it. But still, you know, it was kind of that switch. And I agree with Doc Rivers that you should, you know, that shouldn't be part of your record. And if it, when, you know, I'm going to change my mind. No, it should. It should, because this is what sucks about the NBA. Because in order to be good, you have to go through a whole pile of doo-doo. And that's the only way to do it. You know, like Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption, he trudged through 500 yards of sewer for his freedom. And that's what Will Hardy is in the sewer tunnel right now, in his knees and elbows, sludging through sewer to a championship with the Utah Jazz. And I'm a big fan. And a lot of people are just like, it's very impressive that when he's had opportunities to really coach him up, and you know, and he actually, I think people were shocked. He actually started winning when he first became the coach, because I don't think anything, including the front office, thought the Utah Jazz were going to win when Utah 3 years ago decided to dismantle the whole program. and he's well respected in the NBA. And I quite frankly think these losses and going through this process is what creates the mettle and the fortitude and the perspective and the toughness to win championships. You know, when you've had to really fight it out, really grind it out, and you're invested in it. You know, Will Hardy says, "Look, I'm invested in this community. I bought in. I'm here." And you've seen the players that he's gotten to play for him, and they play for him. And you like that. And he has this this mindset of developing players, and they're buying into that as well, because it's a glorified development league right now with the Utah Jazz. It's a glorified G League team. Boom. Playing NFL and NBA talent. So fascinating deal. And I think he certainly has the support and backing of the team. And Will Hardy said, "I'm committed here. I'm under contract, and I want to be here for as long as I can." And that's the thing that you really want. You want someone who wants to be around. I pray for Justin Zanuck every day. Pray for Will Hardy. Pray for my Utah Jazz. I pray for May 12th. I pray that wherever the Jazz land in the lottery, wherever it is, that player will be the foundational, generational talent that everybody says you have to win an NBA championship. I'm in. I'm here. I'm invested in the community. I'm glad that all these other people are. The Down and Dirty is here. We're not going anywhere. We're invested, and we're going to leave. The Sean O'Connell Show's next. The Down and Dirty with Scott Mitchell here on ESPN 792.1 FM. Until then, we'll see you then.